Hello, dear viewers. I'm glad to welcome you to the Alien Relatives channel. We've been living here for 2 months now. Well, this is my brother's apartment. Zolовка brazenly declared to Diana's father, unaware of the consequences that would follow. The story you're about to hear vividly demonstrates what happens when kindness is mistaken for weakness and insolence crosses all boundaries. It all started with the rustling of Okan plastic bags at 7 a.m. The sound was disgusting, insistent, like the scraping of foam on glass. Diana opened one eye. The bedroom was dark. The thick curtains, her pride, the black-out curtains she'd bought with her first prize, reliably blocked out the morning city. But the sound was coming from the hallway. First a rustling sound, then a dull thud, like someone dropping a sack of potatoes. And finally, a ringing, completely inappropriate laugh. Mish, Diana whispered, nudging her husband. Mish, is someone there? Mikhail mumbled something unintelligible, pulled the blanket over his ear, and rolled over. Diana had always admired his ability to sleep through any situation, but now it infuriated her. She stood up. Her bare feet touched the laminate flooring. It was cold. Her robe was hanging on a chair, but she couldn't find it in the darkness. For some reason, the chair was out of place. Diana turned on the flashlight on her phone and stepped out into the hallway. The light was on in the entryway, bright, piercing her eyes. In the center of the narrow space, cluttered with her favorite shoe rack and mirror, stood a mountain of bags. Checkered duffel bags, sports backpacks, some kind of shoe boxes tied with twine. And above this chaos, a light towered. Zolовka was wearing a down jacket unbuttoned at the chest, and a hat with a pom-pom that made her round face look like a bun. Her teenage son Artyom was shifting from foot to foot next to her, his head buried in his phone. Oh, Dinka, Liddy, Sveta grimaced, seeing her. And we're here, this is a surprise, eh? Diana winced. The echo in the panel building was merciless. Sveta, 7 a.m., Saturday. What happened? Oh, don't be grumpy. Samantha kicked off one sneaker, kicking into the corner, right on the suede ankle boots. We're having a flood. Well, I mean from the neighbors upstairs. I turned off the tap, but it's damp mold's going to spread. It's hard to breathe. We're coming over for a couple of days. A sleepy Mikhail appeared in the bedroom doorway. He squinted, scratching his stomach. Svetka, what's wrong? Teddy bear? She darted toward her brother, nearly knocking over the duffel bag. Save our own blood. We're soaked, she said. It's impossible to live. Artyom has to go to school, I have to go to work, and the stench is overwhelming. Mikhail yawned, looked at the pile of things, then at Diana. His eyes betrayed that same masculine helplessness before the onslaught of active relatives that Diana hated. Well, since that's the case, come in, of course, you'll have some tea. Diana was silent. She looked at her ankle boots crushed beneath dirty size 40 sneakers and felt something heavy boiling inside. She didn't yet know that a couple of days is the biggest lie in human history. The apartment was a 2-room apartment, not a mansion, but Diana claimed it until it sparkled. Light colors, minimal visual noise, everything in its place. It was her fortress, her order built over years. By the evening of the first day, the fortress had fallen. The living room, where it served as Diana's office when she worked from home, had come a branch of a gypsy camp. The sofa was unfolded and covered with some stale, yellowish linen that Sveta had thoughtfully brought with her. There were mug marks on the coffee table. Aryam had taken over the TV, plugging in a set-top box. And now the room, filled with the sounds of explosions and the screeching of tires. "One, where do you keep the salt?" Sveta shouted from the kitchen. Tina was sitting in the bedroom, trying to concentrate on a report. "In the cabinet above the sink, in a glass jar." "I didn't find it." "And that, but you're almost out of oil." I fried it in olive oil." Diana closed her laptop and exhaled slowly. She'd brought the olive oil back from vacation, saving it for salads. The kitchen was in chaos. Sveta was cooking cutlets, very spattered onto the white tile backsplash that Diana wiped down every evening. The smell of fried meat was so thick you could cut it with a knife. There's an exhaust hood, Diana remarked, trying to keep her voice even. "Where the hell is it? My head hurts." Zolowka waved him off, turning a cutlet with a fork. Fat dripped onto the countertop. "Sit down, I'll feed you now." "Where's my Mishka?" "He's probably hungry." Your Mishka was lying in the bedroom scrolling through his news feed. He was happy. His sister arrived and took over the cooking. The house was cheerful and noisy. He grew up in such an environment. For him, it was the norm. For Diana, the only child of a professor and a paid librarian, it was hell. Sveta chattered incessantly at dinner. "And so I said to Lenka, tell him to look at the faucet, but I don't have any money. And what money do I have? It'll take 5 minutes. Mishka, by the way, a shelf fell off in my hallway. You should take a look, right? Well, later, when you stop by." Artyom ate silently, his phone buried in his mouth, slurping so loudly that Diana wanted to put on her headphones. She picked at her cutlet with her fork. "Oversalted, greasy." "Delicious?" Sveta asked, looking at her point blank. "Homemade? You're always eating your salads. Look how skinny you are. A man needs meat." Mikhail nodded contentedly, stuffing his mouth. "Yeah, Sveto, those cutlets are amazing." "Dean, try them." Diana put down her fork. "Thank you, I'm not hungry." "Sveta, when did you say your renovations were finished?" The pause hung in the air. Sveta wiped her lips with a cloth napkin. "The festive one Diana only took out for guests. And now it lay in a pile on the table." "Oh, who knows? It should dry in 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, about a week. We're not bothering you in the cramped space, but no offense." Mikhail smiled. "Of course, don't disturb us. There's enough room for everyone." A week passed, then another. The words flood and renovations disappeared from Sveta's vocabulary. Now it was simply, "We'll stay with you for a while." But Diana's life was falling apart. In the morning, she couldn't get to the bathroom. Artyom would sit there 40 minutes on the phone. In the evening, there was always someone in the kitchen. Groceries were disappearing at an alarming rate. Diana bought yogurts for breakfast. In the evening, she'd find empty cups in the trash and buy good coffee. They drank liters of it, brewing it right in the cups, leaving the grounds in the sink. Shampoo, conditioner, face cream, everything was being recycled. "Dean, your foundation is so great. I just put a little on because mine ran out," Sveta would say, getting ready for work. She worked as an administrator at a beauty salon and left at 10. But the worst thing wasn't the worst thing was the attitude where she stopped being the housewife. He became a servante Joe. The dishes didn't wash themselves. Sveta soaked them in the sink. The trash wasn't taken out. Oh, we forgot. The hallway floor was always covered in sand. One evening, Diana returned home and found her desk in the living room dismantled, her laptop moved, documents piled on the floor, and Artie doing his homework on the table, or pretending to, with notebooks and chips spread out. Artyom, Diana said quietly, this is my workspace. The guy didn't even turn around. His mother told him to sit here. It was hot in the kitchen. Diana went into the kitchen. Sveta was sitting on the phone, drinking tea from Diana's favorite mug, the fine china her father had given her. Sveta, why is Artyom at my desk? Well, where should he sit? Misha sleeps in the bedroom. I cook here. Is that a shame? The kid is studying. This is my desk, my documents. There. Oh, what documents, bills, down to the last piece of paper. He didn't touch a thing. You're kind of nervous, Dean. PMS. Diana clenched her fist so hard, her nails dug into her palms. She didn't know how to make a scene. She wasn't taught to yell, smash dishes, or drag people by the hair. She was taught to argue, but arguments didn't work here. It was the law of the jungle here. The loudest gets the slippers. That evening, she tried to talk to her husband. Misha, this can't go on forever. A month passed. Mikhail was sitting on the bed, leafing through a magazine. Dean, where should I send them? To my mother's. She's also renovating, And anyway, this is my sister. She's in a difficult situation. There's some kind of friction with her ex-husband. There's no money. Be patient. They eat our food, live off. And I can't even work in peace. But don't exaggerate. Sveta is buying groceries. Yesterday she bought bread and milk. Bread and milk, but not meat, cheese, vegetables, household cleaning supplies. Have you seen the water bill? You're petty, Miki grimaced. I didn't expect that from you. Family members should help each other. The word petty hit like a slap. Diana fell silent. She realized her husband had chosen a side, and it wasn't hers. Diana started hiding things. Expensive cosmetics were moved to a drawer at work. Favorite mugs accidentally broke. In fact, they were hidden in a closet on the balcony. Her laptop was now always in her backpack. She only came home to sleep. He ate at a cafe or at work. I'm on a diet, she said when Sveta offered greasy pasta iced. She watched and listened. The walls in the paneled buildings were thin. One night, when Mikhail was already snoring and Diana lay awake, she heard Sveta's voice from the living room. Zolовka was talking on the phone, apparently with that same difficult mother, Tamara Ilyinishna. Everything's fine, Mom. We're living here. Dinka was silent. What would she... Mishka said, let them sit there as long as they need to. I rented out my apartment and imagine 30,000. At least I'll pay off the debts. Yeah, the tenants are decent. So what? There's plenty of space here. I cook and clean. They should thank me. Diana smiled in the darkness. It was a terrifying smile. So, the flood. Then, renovations. She rents out her apartment, gets paid, and lives here with full board, and even plays the part of a benefactor. And Mikhail, did he know? Most likely he guessed, or preferred not to know. The puzzle is complete. It's too easy to expose them all now, out of emotion. Having sent her out to the zolовка on a normal weekday, Sveta would immediately call the entire family, bursting into tears, and portrayed Diana as a greedy husturu who had thrown the poor fire victims out into the cold. Mikhail would secretly pity his unfortunate sister for the rest of his life, and the true face of the zolовка would remain hidden. Diana understood that true cold revenge requires patience. An audience was needed, and Sveta had to be allowed to reach the peak of her insolence, gather guests, and tear off her mask so publicly, once and for all. Besides, March it was supposed to be Mikhail's final test. Would he remember who the most important woman in this house was, or would he finally choose the role of servant to his insolent relatives? Only one final act was needed, the perfect storm. A week before March, Sveta announced, "Basically, I've invited the girls. Lenka and her husband, Tanya, and of course, Mom, Disala, will sit down and celebrate. Dean, you think of something for the table, some salads, some cold cuts? I'll make something hot." Diana looked up from her book. "How many people?" "Well, there are 4 of us plus the guests. About 10 people will do." "Fine. We'll borrow chairs from the neighbors." "I wasn't planning a big cookout." "Oh, come on, it's Women's Day. We should team up. Harap. Mishka will buy some wine." Mikhail supported her. "Dean, really, let's be civil. Mom will come. We haven't seen each other as a family in a long time." Diana had no place in this formulation for the whole family. She was just a function. Serve, bring, wash, smile. Yeah. "Okay," she said, "I'll set the table." She didn't argue, didn't say she was tired. He went to the store and bought groceries. A lot of good stuff. Red fish, caviar. Not imitation, but the real thing. A half-kilogram jar. Expensive butter, vegetables, and fruit. The bill was astronomical. She carefully photographed it and sent it to the cloud. Mikhail, seeing the bags, whistled. "Wow, now that's what I call scope. Great job, Dino. You can do it when you want to." Diana silently unpacked the bags. A taut string rang within her. March 7th passed in a flurry. Sveta hovered around, giving valuable instructions, but doing little herself. Her manicure was fresh, a shame. Diana was cutting, boiling, steaming. "Olivier salad, do more." "Men love it," the lady commanded, lying on the sofa with a smear on her face. "And cut the cheese thinner, not in the dining room." Diana cut thinly, very thinly, like a scalpel. The morning of March 8th arrived. Mikhail ceremoniously handed Diana a package of 5 cellophane-wrapped tulips and a box of Karkunov chocolates. "Happy holiday, my love." In Sveta, he gave her a gift certificate to which he put 25,000 rubles. "My sister needs more. She doesn't have any money right now." Diana accepted the tulips and put out a vase. By 2 o'clock, the guests began to arrive. Samora Ilinishna arrived, a stern woman with a voice like an Iracon trumpet. "Well, hostesses, have you managed?" she asked loudly, Paul bursting into the hallway. "Oh, how cramped it is in here. There's no room to turn around." Sveta's friends arrived with their husbands. Noisy, simple people who immediately felt at home. "Oh, what a crust!" Lenka's husband admired immediately reaching for a sandwich. "You live a normal life, bourgeois." Diana was in the kitchen, carrying plates and hot salad bowls. There was no room at the table for everyone. Mikhail sat at the head, flushed and contented. Nearby were Sveta, Mom, and the guests. Artyom perched on a stool. Diana didn't have a chair. "Dean, bring us some napkins," Sveta shouted across the table, "and cut the bread." Diana brought them and stood by the doorframe. "Sit down, Dean, on the ottoman. Over there." Mikhail waved, already pouring out the vodka the guests had brought with them. "I'll stand. I have to serve something even hotter." He watched them, watching Sveta serve the salad to the guests with a hostess-like gesture. Like Tamara Ilyinishna criticizing jellied meat, gelatine isn't worth much. He laughed at some random guy's joke, clapping him on the shoulder. It was a party in her apartment, paid for by her, but without her. At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was persistent, drawn out. Sveta, already quite cheerful, jumped up. "Oh, it's probably a delivery or someone else from us. Stay put, I'll open it." She floated out into the hall, her party dress rustling. Diana tensed. He heard the door open, heard heavy footsteps. "Hello? Yeah?" Sveta's voice sounded surprised and a little impudent. "And who are you here to see? We weren't expecting a delivery, but if we made a mistake, then go away." "I'm here to see my daughter," came the baritone of Vitaly Borisovich, Diana's father, calm as a hum transformer. "And to see my son-in-law." "Oh, Daddy," Sveta chuckled, clearly not realizing who she was talking to. "Well, come in since you're here." "But we're crowded here. It's crowded." "Take off your shoes there. There are no slippers, but you have socks." Father entered the room. He was wearing a coat with a huge bouquet of roses, dark burgundy, expensive ones. He stopped at the threshold of the living room, looked at the table, the drunken faces of the guests, the mountains of food. Then his gaze found Diana standing by the wall with an empty tray, pale, tired, in apron. Then he looked at Mikhail, who was chewing a chicken leg. "Happy holidays," Vital Borisovich said dryly. Mihichok jumped up, wiping his hands from his pants. "Vitaly Borisovich, hello. Come in, sit down." "We are right here." Sveta followed her father in, placing her hands on her hips. She had already managed to drink a couple of glasses, and the sea was knee-deep in her stomach. "Mish, where are we supposed to sit?" "You can sit on your heads like that." "Man, you should give me the bouquet and go while we sit here with our group." Silence fell in the room. Even Artyom looked up from his phone. Vitaly Savich slowly turned his head toward the light. His gaze was heavy, scanning. "With your company?" he repeated. "Hey, well, yes." Sveta shook her curls. "We live here, actually family. You, as I understand it, are a rare guest. Don't blame me." "You live here?" her father clarified. "We've been living here for 2 months already." Zolовka answered brazenly. Her voice rang with the notes of a market anti-trader, confident in her own rightness. "So there's no need to boss around here." Dad turned his gaze back to his daughter. She stood like a waitress in a cheap eatery. Vitaly Borisovich didn't shout. He carefully placed the bouquet on the dresser end and unbuttoned his coat. "Mikhail," he addressed his son-in-law, ignoring the light. "Come here." Mikhail, pale as a sheet, approached. By Borisovich, Sveta, she just drank, but she didn't mean to. "What's going on here?" "I gave this apartment to my daughter. It's not even jointly acquired property, it's hers." Eh. The room became so quiet that you could hear a fly buzzing over a salad. Sveta blinked. The hops began to evaporate. "What do you mean?" she asked. Mishka said it was theirs. Mikhail could say whatever he wanted, Vitaly Borisovich snapped. But legally, there is only one owner here, Diana. If Diana doesn't invite you, then you don't live here. You are here illegally. Tamara Ilyinishna, who had been sitting silently until then, suddenly spoke up. But why so formal? Matchmakers are just ordinary people after all. So what if the children lived together for a while? Vitaly Borisovich looked at her with icy calm. Relatives help. They don't parasitize. I see my daughter working here as a servant. I see the camp that has taken over her house, and I hear rudeness. He turned to Sveta. You have 20 minutes. For what? Zolowka asked stupidly. To pack your things and vacate the premises along with your guest, your son, and your bags, which have apparently been standing in the hallway for Misha, Sveta shrieked, tell him this is my brother. Mikhail stood with his head down. The paper trembled in his hands. He had ruined everything. He wanted to be good to everyone, but he was weak. Intik knew about the apartment. He knew, but conveniently forgot, allowing his sister to believe that she could assert her rights here. Sveta, he muttered, get ready. It was true that Sveta choked with indignation. You're kicking me out, my own sister, on a holiday. This isn't his apartment, Sveta. Diana said quietly. For the first time that evening, Diana spoke. Her voice was even without hysteria. This is my home. I'm tired. You ate my food. You took my time. You've ruined my life for the past 2 months. I know you're renting out your apartment, Sveta. I heard your conversation. Sveta's face turned red. You were eavesdropping. I lived in my own house. It's hard not to hear when they're yelling throughout the apartment. That's right. 20 minutes, or I'll call the police. And believe me, they'll get you out faster. I have a residence permit and property rights here, and you have nothing. The guests began to rise hesitantly. Well, we'll probably go, Lenka's husband muttered, looking regretfully at the unfinished bottle. Family squabbles. 5 minutes later, hell broke loose in the apartment. Sveta rushed through the rooms, throwing things in her bag, cursing Diana, Mikhail, the whole world, and the bourgeoisie. She screamed, cried, called her brother a wimp. Artyom sullenly unwound the wires of the console. Tomaralnishna sat on a chair and lamented, clutching her heart, but seeing that Vitaly Borisovich took out his phone, she quickly stood up and went to get dressed. Mikhail sat on the sofa, clutching his head in his hands. He did not help his sister. He sat crushed. When the door slammed behind the last guest and Sveta, sending a fine little curse in the direction of the snake, Tutu dragged his last bag. Silence reigned in the apartment. Dirty dishes scattered, napkins, cold food, the smell of fumes, and cheap perfume. Vitaly Borisovich went to the window and opened the transom. The fresh March air rushed in. Stuffy room. It became easier to breathe, he said. Then he came up to Diana, put his arm around her shoulders. Big, strong, reliable. Mikhail raised his head. His eyes were red. Dean, I don't need to, Misha, she interrupted him. Not now. Clear all this mess from the table and wash the floor, eh? And you, I'll have tea with Dad in the kitchen. She took the bouquet of roses that her father brought. Beautiful, fresh, with droplets of water on the petals. Diana went into the kitchen, stepping over a stain from someone's spilled wine. She felt strange. There was no wild joy, no triumph. There was fatigue and an enormous, boundless relief. She put the kettle on, took out 2 clean cups, the very ones hidden. She found a jar of good tea that Sveta hadn't had time to find. Vitaly Borissovich sat down at the table, unbuttoned his shirt collar. "Good tea," he said when Diana poured him borscht with bergamot. With a thyme, Dad, just the way you like it. The clink of dishes came from the living room. Mikhail was clearing the table. He rattled plates, shuffled his feet, and he tried. Diana knew there would be a difficult conversation tomorrow. Perhaps he would go to his mother, perhaps he would stay and beg for forgiveness for months. That wasn't so important anymore. What mattered was that now all the roles were assigned correctly. She was the hostess here, and no one would dare say she was a guest anymore. Diana took a sip. The hot tea burned her throat, washing away the bitterness of the last 2 months. She looked at her father and smiled. "Happy March 8th to me, Dad. Happy holiday, daughter." And that was the best gift. That, dear listeners, is the ending. Everything fell into place, and thanks to a firm Bachman's word. Father acted exactly as he should, the protector of his family. I'd like to hear your opinion. Do you think Diana should forgive her husband after such a betrayal? Or is their trust irrevocable? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and we'll discuss it. Take care of yourself, your home, and your peace of mind. Until then,